watching Gearz, brought to you by LMC Truck. Restore, maintain, customize.
At the peak of the muscle car wars, a lot of people don't realize that the battle wasn't just happening on the street, and it was happening on the racetracks too. Everybody had their big guns out and were blazing away. There were 440s, there were 454s, there were 426s, there were 428s, and everybody was trying to be the big dog. But in this kind of battle, man, you need a shotgun, and nobody had that until 1969. In the late 60s and the early 70s, Ford was out for blood on the street and the NASCAR circuit. Their older big block had served them well, but it was starting to get long in the tooth, and Mopar was wiping their fanny with the brutally fast Hemi. Ford knew that they needed a new engine that would compete. So they secretly developed their own Hemi engine, and they called it the shotgun Boss 429. Of course, to get the engine past the NASCAR rules so they could go racing with it, they dropped this massive engine into a Mustang and sold them to the public, just like Chrysler did with the Hemi Cudas and Challengers. Then suddenly a problem arose. When NASCAR President Bill France saw that Superbirds were averaging over 200 miles an hour on the big ovals, and Ford and Chevy were preparing to come out with who knows what, he pulled the plug on the big engines and the cars that looked like experimental aircraft, and sent everybody scurrying back to the drawing boards with small block engines and restrictor plates. Without the support of NASCAR and other racing venues, the Boss 429 engine was scrapped after 1970, and it disappeared, leaving only a few Mustangs as proof that it ever existed. And now, almost 40 years later, people are still lamenting the loss of that engine and wondering what would have happened if its full potential had been realized. I mean, how would it have done against legendary Mopars and big block Chevelles and Camaros? Well, one guy that decided to quit wondering and do something about it is Jon Kaase. What, you've never heard of Jon Kaase? Well, we need to make a trip. In the small, sleepy town of Winder, Georgia, there sits a building. A simple, unmarked building that gives no hint of what may be lurking inside the doors. No hint, that is, until you step around back and see what appears to be the world's largest set of glass pack mufflers. And of course, the unreal sound that comes from those mufflers is magic to the ears of a gearhead, and it's probably a nightmare if you're a neighbor trying to get some sleep. That's because within the walls of this building is Jon Kaase Racing engines. And when it comes to building mega cube engines with insane power, Jon Kaase is the boss.
We've been pretty much building engines on my own here since '79.
Jon's career started as a drag racer, but his skill with an engine quickly landed him the job as crew chief for Don Nicholson.
We kind of hung out and pitted next to Nicholson and stuff, and as another deal, he took us under his wing, and you know, eventually we quit racing and I went to work for him.
It wasn't long after that that Jon decided to open his own shop.
I think that a lot of people think that guy must be real smart or really sharp or something. Sometimes it's just doing it a lot. I mean, just like in there, we're just dynoing just now. You try something, it doesn't work, you try something else. Well, if you do that for 20 years, pretty soon you have a lot of data stored up. It might not be written down, but it's there, and you know, that helps a lot.
The thing that sets Jon Kaase Racing apart from most other shops is they do virtually all the work in-house, from machining blocks and heads to porting and polishing heads and intakes, assembling engines, even designing new products. And everybody that works here not only takes their job very seriously, but they love what they do.
It's the best. There's always something going on. It's so good, I pay him on Friday. That's how good it is.
This is a dream job for sure. I've done a lot of different things, but this is by far the best. So, hope to be here forever.
If you've got a $20,000 aluminum block that's been blown all to pieces in your dragster, this is the place to send it to get it fixed so it can live again. Of course, the dyno room is where everything comes to life, and the sound and the power numbers that they get are mind-blowing. This is over 800 cubic inches of pro stock Hemi that's kicking out just under 2,000 horsepower. This is serious.
Actually, you take all these pieces, and when you put them all together and it starts on the dyno, you feel like you accomplished something. It's like bringing something to life.
Yeah.
So it's quite a pretty good rush, really.
However, Jon's not the sort of guy to just rest on past accomplishments. No, he continues to expand the envelope of high-performance engine building with smaller engines too. The Engine Masters Engine Challenge is a prime example of that, and where the Boss 429 comes in.
And you can have an engine that makes 2,000 horsepower, but doesn't ever make it down the racetrack. So the Engine Master deal really came in handy for engine builders that wanted to compete without all the other variables.
Because of the Engine Masters, I thought, man, I'd really like to build a Boss 429.
He called me on the phone, and he was thinking about building a Boss 9 the next year. So when he got back, we started looking online for parts and trying to locate these things. We couldn't find any cylinder heads, we couldn't find any of the blocks, and it really became an issue, just the expense of trying to locate and find the parts to build an engine with for the next competition.
I thought, well, maybe we could build new heads, and what would that cost? And
so Jon went back to the drawing board, and he came out with a cylinder head that'll fit a 460 block, and we went from there and decided to make our own heads. We didn't realize at the time, of course, being gearheads we are, we were going to create this product just for us to build for the Engine Masters. Really what all it could go into, and how it's turned out to be a really, really wide range of applications.
Hey, welcome back to Gearz and our look at the legendary Boss 429 engine and the new Boss 9 engines from Jon Kaase Racing. Now, basically what Jon has done is taken all of his years of building racing engines and used it to start building Boss engine parts that will fit on any 429, 460 block, give you insane power, and is affordable to the average guy. Yeah, the Boss is back.
Jon went back to the drawing board, and he came out with a cylinder head that'll fit a 460 block.
Of course, the magic in that Boss system is in those heads. And as you can see from the outside, they look just like a super rare vintage set of Boss 429 heads. But to make them fit a standard 460 block and build the power that these Boss heads are capable of, now some changes had to happen on the inside. Check it out. The oiling holes were redesigned to work with the standard block, and the rocker pedestals were also modified for more strength. The combustion chamber was revised to enhance the semi-Hemi design to help give more power and resist detonation. The massive intake and exhaust ports were also reworked to give you even more power. Now you know why they nicknamed this engine the Shotgun. Look at the size of the valves and ports on this thing. Man, they're huge. But that's not all. Jon also designed his own high-flowing intake manifold to work with the heads and to mount various different types of carburetors and fuel injection. Then, to finish everything off, he also makes his own set of original-style valve covers to give you one of the best-looking engines ever made and the power to match it. Now, I know some of you guys are looking at this and going, oh yeah, that's great, but what does it cost, $1 zillion bucks? No, man, that's the best part.
No comparison at all. I mean, you're talking a product here that you can buy a 460 block, you can go and buy a $150 junk 460 out of the junkyard. You know, spend $7,000, $8,000 on the top end package, spend a couple grand at the machine shop, and have a Boss 429 engine that produces over 700 horse you can drive on the street.
For around 10 grand?
Yeah, if you want to do it, you know, if you want to build it on your own, you have got a good machine shop, absolutely.
Of course, for those of you that don't want to build the engine yourself, Jon Kaase also specializes in crate engines built to your specs, all dynoed and ready to go. And that is what's going in the V8 Interceptor. Check it out. This is a 520 cubic inch Boss 9 engine that was dynoed at 750 horsepower and 700 foot-pounds of torque on pump gas. Man, those are race car type numbers. But as you can see, this thing is set up for a street car. It has a complete Billet Specialties accessory system on it that includes all the accessories for power steering, air conditioning, alternator, all wrapped into a nice tight package. A package that should fit really nice in that old Cougar. Hey, welcome back to Gearz, where today's big questions are, can we shoehorn this huge Boss engine into this unsuspecting Mercury Cougar, and will the 700 foot-pounds of torque twist this thing into a pretzel? Good questions, but first things first, we need to decide how we're gonna get all that power to the rear tires, and we're gonna do it with a stick. And you didn't think we were gonna put an automatic behind that, did you? Now, most people are familiar with the T56 6-speed. It's a great transmission, but it had some limitations. So Tremec decided to fix all that and came out with the Magnum 6-speed. And American Powertrain is one of the few places you can go to get one of these and all the other stuff you're gonna need to put it in your project.
As far as manual transmissions go, we're probably the foremost experts in the country. We wanted to put together systems so that people could just take it out of the box in their garage, put their transmission in with everything they need, and not have a lot of hassles, not have to run to Napa and beat on the door every day.
The Magnum is not just a 6-speed. It's got much stronger gears inside of it to handle more power. The synchronizers are more accurate so you can really slam the gears. You have a convertible shifter location, which will help in how you place the shifter up through the floor, and you have the ability to run an electrical or a mechanical speedometer. But the best part is these babies are rated at over 700 foot-pounds, which means this will handle the Boss. Now, to go with that transmission, we also got us a flywheel, a heavy-duty bell housing from QuickTime, and an engine plate to protect us if that clutch comes apart. Speaking of clutch, we got one of American Powertrain's dual clutch systems that'll give us incredible holding power and still make it very streetable. To actuate that clutch, we got a hydraulic throwout bearing. To actuate the throwout bearing, we got a Willwood master cylinder. Then, of course, we have an adjustable cross member and all the hardware, so you have options when you bolt this under the car. Now, the cool thing about using a whole system like this is that American Powertrain's taking all the guesswork out of it for you. Basically, all you do is bolt it together. The motor plate goes on first, followed by the pilot bushing and the flywheel. The dual disc clutch is next, and it comes as a complete assembly with the clutch discs and pressure plate all assembled and ready to go. So all you have to do is bolt it on. Followed by the bell housing. Now, this hydraulic throwout bearing is really slick. Take a look at this. You see, you got a threaded insert here that allows you to perfectly set the gap between the throwout bearing and the pressure plate. And it does away with all of that old mechanical linkage that always drove you crazy. Now, of course, it just slides onto the transmission input shaft, and you just run the lines out the hole at the bottom. Now, at this point, you're ready to bolt the transmission to the engine, which means it's finally time to fit that engine into the car, see what kind of room we got. Okay, go ahead and start lowering it down. You'll need to push the back that way just a hair. There we go. Looks good. Looks good. Clear. Okay, push it forward just a hair. There we go. Come on down. It's like putting Dumbo in a box of Cracker Jacks. Man, it doesn't matter what you're into, you've got to love this. Now, obviously, we just have it mocked into place right now, checking clearances, and I'd love to tell you that everything's just dropping in place perfectly. But that's not realistic on a project like this. Man, anytime you combine a unique suspension, engine, and car, you need to be prepared to solve some problems. Now, as you can see, we've got all kinds of room down the sides here with the shock towers gone. But here in the back, we got a little bit of an issue where the air conditioning is. So we might have to modify that a little bit to clear the engine. Also underneath, we got just a little bit of a clearance issue on the oil pans, keeping the engine from dropping down. But other than that, man, it's looking good. Now, I know some of you guys have been a little concerned when I mentioned 750 horsepower in a unibody car, and you're right. 750 horsepower in any unibody car, shock towers or not, is going to cause a problem. So, to build some strength into the front of the car, I'm going to build a tube frame that's going to go from the firewall underneath here. It's going to run underneath this inner fender, come out through this panel, and then go down to the front of the frame and to the rear of the frame and triangulate that together. Then I'll fabricate a removable strut that will go to the firewall, triangulating everything together, giving us incredible strength and removing all of the flex out of the cowl area. Now, it's important to remember when you're doing a project like this, to take the time to overbuild it so you can enjoy it, not build it weak and cheap to where it's going to be breaking on you all the time. All right. At this point, we're ready to bolt in the transmission and the shifter. Now, the shifter on this project is pretty unique. We've got a low car handle, and then for the knob, we went to our buddies at Speed Dog and had them sink our logo deep into the middle of one of these marble-looking knobs. I mean, this thing begs to be slammed around. And if you want one of these for your project, you can get them right on the website. As you can see, the V8 Interceptor is well on its way to getting some serious teeth. And hopefully this gets you to thinking about maybe sticking a Boss 9 into your project. That way you can find out firsthand how well that engine would have done against the other legendary big blocks of the muscle car era.
Now, quick tip. Brought to you by E3 Spark Plugs, born to burn.
There's no doubt that working with aluminum is great, but cutting and grinding aluminum, well, that can be a real pain, because that soft aluminum can load up into the teeth of your cutters and make them ineffective. Now, the best way to keep this from happening is that from time to time, take some automatic transmission fluid and put it on your cutters. Now, what this will do is lubricate better than a typical cutting fluid to keep those parts not only cutting well, but to keep that aluminum from sticking to those teeth and gumming up the works. The best part is automatic transmission fluid is cheap. You can find it anywhere. If you want to learn some more tips to make your life easier in the shop, check out the tips page on the website.
And now, Parts Bin.
You know, even though fuel injection has been around for a while, a lot of people are still intimidated by it and would never think to put it on their engine. And that's a shame, because there's some real benefits to putting fuel injection on your engine. So what we're going to do is show you how simple it is to convert a carbureted engine to a throttle body injection using this simple kit from Howell Engine Developments. Basically, a throttle body system consists of a throttle body with injectors in it, and it's designed to bolt right in place of your stock carburetor using an adapter plate. Since a fuel injection needs more fuel pressure than a carburetor, your stock fuel pump will need to be replaced by this inline electric pump. Now, it'll utilize your stock lines. You'll just need to mount it down on the frame of your vehicle using the supplied brackets. Of course, the ECM, or the computer that controls this thing, needs to be mounted on the firewall or on the inner fender or inside the vehicle, someplace where it won't get wet. So for demonstration purposes, we're going to mount it right here and pretend this is not a gas tank. Now, all the sensors and fittings that you need to run the injection are here, including an O2 sensor that mounts into your exhaust pipe. Now, if your headers or pipes don't have a threaded bung, Howell supplies one for you to weld in. Now at this point, you just take the wiring harness, it's got all the ends well marked, and just hook them up to where it says. I mean, that's it. Pretty much a plug and play deal. Now, just in case you're wondering, Hal also deals in multi-port fuel injection units, custom wiring harnesses, all kinds of fuel injection stuff. So if you are interested in jumping into the fuel injection pool, Hal is a good place to go to keep your head above water.
What are you working on? Brought to you by Miller Electric, the leading manufacturer of arc welding and cutting equipment for your business or home shop.
Today's What Are You Working On comes from Terry DeLong, and he's an instructor at the 4-County Area Vocational Cooperative in Kendallville, Indiana. Now what they do here is that they teach high school juniors and seniors the art of auto body. Now check it out. Here's some guys working on some stuff. And he says the program's only 2 years old, but it's state of the art. Now check this out. They have a downdraft paint booth. They've got a complete paint mixing room, a couple guys trying to figure out what they're mixing up here. And then they have a frame rack, and I love this shot of this guy working on this frame rack. Now, he said what they do is that each student is given a door when they come in, and throughout the season they work on that door. And at the end of the year, they pick one of these doors to hang up. So it's not only an honor to get your door hung up, but as you can see, they're actually really learning skills here too. Case in point, they are the ones that painted this Challenger hood for us a few weeks ago. And as you can see, they did an awesome job. And hopefully this encourages other schools to add this into their curriculum, because people need to know how to do this stuff. So to help you guys out, Terry, we are going to give you one of these Miller auto darkening welding helmets to help your students hone their welding skills. Now, for the rest of you guys out there, we know that you're working on something. Send some pictures in to StaceyDavid.com. We'll see if we can get it on the air. And if you don't have a project, now is the perfect time to go out and find one, because as you've seen with the Cougar, they're still out there. Now, if you want to see a little extra footage of the Jon Kaase stuff, make sure you check it out on the website, because we've got some of that too. All right, we will see you next week.